welcome to Economics Unit 4, pages 32 through 33. Alright, so we're going to be skipping questions 1 and 5, and there's two other words in the definitions we're also going to be skipping. Just cross them out, we're not going to worry about them. So, changing reserve requirements. Sometimes the federal government will change the reserve requirements. In the last video, we had the example of 10%. They can change it higher or lower to affect the money supply. If they make it higher, it'll reduce the money supply because the banks will have to hold back more. If they reduce the reserve requirements, then the banks don't have to hold back so much and they can spend more. So what happens if a bank gets in trouble, though? They dip below their reserve requirement. Well, they're not automatically going to be punished for that, but they're going to have to take a loan from the government. And the government will make money on the paying back of that loan, the interest rates. And the rates that they charge are known as the discount rates. So they might be more favorable rates. They don't want to crush businesses or banks that dip below the reserve requirement. But there has to be some kind of consequence. So one of those is the cost of credit. They're going to have to take a loan and pay this discount rate. And then now banks then will use that rate to help to decide what their prime rate is, and that's the lowest rate that they offer to their best customers. So those are the two kinds of rates. They're kind of connected to each other, but not really, because discount rate is only what the government loaned to a bank, and a prime rate is a rate from the bank to the consumer, like you. But prime rates tend to go up and down dependent on the reserve requirements and the discount rates. As those things go higher, the prime rates will go higher, which means if you're not one of their best customers, your rates will even be higher than that. So the prime rate is kind of like the best possible rate that you can get. So the federal funds rate. The federal funds rate is the interest rate that banks charge each other for short-term loans. So a bank can take a loan from the government, but they might also take a loan from another bank. And this federal funds rate is a rate set by the Fed. That's why it's a federal funds rate. So the Federal Reserve sets this rate. And they have to be very, very careful, just like they do with the interest rates for everybody, because if the federal fund rate drops, banks will borrow more and lend more, but then that can lead to inflation. And if the federal funds rate rises, then banks will borrow less and raise interest rates on funds that they lend, but then that can lead to recession. So again, we get back to that balancing act between tight money and loose money policies. It absolutely applies to this. And again, this is only on interest rates on banks loaning to each other, not to what they loan to you. They're not as restricted there. The reason why many people think the Fed shouldn't have this power anymore, because while it does allow them to use it wisely to protect us from inflation and recession, if they mess it up, and they have in the past, it could be the one reason that we experience inflation and recession. So with great power comes great responsibility. They have the power to do great things by affecting this rate to manage our economy. But oh man, if they get it wrong, we pay the cost. They might lose their job, but they're still rich at that level. We're the ones who feel the effects of bad decisions by the Fed. So many critics think that the Fed should just not have any monetary policy, loose or tight. They just should not be involved. And one of the reasons why it is so difficult, because trying to measure and evaluate things like M1 and M2 is tough, because that's a lot of money. And there's so many different ways, especially in M2, that money can be expressed, near monies. That it's a job that it's not exact science. You can get it wrong no matter how intelligent and smart you are. There have been good Feds and there's been bad Feds. There's always an element of risk, but that might be the price we pay for the protection from the free market, because a completely free market has no rules to protect anybody. It's a dog-eat-dog world in a pure free market. Don't forget the Edmodo quiz and the textbook assignment on the screen, and I'll see you in class. Thank you.